and welcome back to the WSL podcast. I'm Charlie Parks and I'm here with Matt Clough.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. I'm fine. It's Friday night. We don't often record on a Friday night.
No.
Well, it's Friday evening, I guess.
Yes. Just finished work, ready to chat some WSL.
I have Fridays off, so I've had a very sort of lady of leisure day. Got up late, watched some telly, went to the gym, spent a lot of money in home bargains. I know how to live. Don't want to flex, but I spent about 20 quid in home bargains.
Yeah, high roller.
Yeah, just the sort of thing I do on a Friday. Just dropping 20 quid in home bargains. It's just no biggie. What have we been up to since we last recorded? Obviously Easter weekend last weekend. We went to a non-league game.
We did.
Men's game.
Unfortunately.
It was beer in the sun. That was the main objective, which was achieved. The football wasn't great.
No, it was not.
The team that we were supporting, in inverted commas, the home team, were very bad.
They were.
2-0 down after 15 minutes. I'm starting to think we're the problem.
Yeah, and it does kind of feel that way.
Like, we were there with my dad, who is a Walsall fan, who obviously Walsall have been in League Two for quite some time. You're a Bolton fan. And
been in League One for quite some time.
And then collectively we're Leicester women's fans, and all of them are a disappointment.
Yes.
So it's us. We're the problem.
Well, to be fair, we saw the Lionesses at the Euros as well. So
I feel like maybe we just pay the price.
Yeah, we've played the sort of Faustian pact of we got to see the Lionesses at the Euros that they won, but everything else that's come since.
Everything else is awful. Yeah. But it's international break now, so naturally, in true YOSHE style, we're talking about something completely different. We're just talking about what the fuck we want to talk about. And it's something we haven't done for a while, actually. If you've listened to this podcast for a while, you know we like to do some other eight stuff. So meaning, teams, players outside of the top four of the WSL, which, let's be honest, is they're the teams that get the most coverage in the wider media. So we like to sort of shine a light on those other teams and give them the credit they deserve, because, just propping the league up. There's some good shit going on.
Yes,
so
there is.
I will intro it properly. I've got so many tabs open here.
All
I've been on my spreadsheets again. You know I love a spreadsheet. So I will do my intro now. There's always plenty of deserved noise about top strikers and forwards in the very elite teams, the top four like we're talking about. So Bunny Shaw is on her way to another WSL Golden Boot. And then with some recent player of the match performances, Alessia Russo has been dominating conversations. Yep. But as you know, on this podcast, we do like to highlight the often unsung heroes in the league who may fly under the radar slightly for their impact, given they're not competing for Champions League or necessarily lifting trophies. So, with all that in mind, today we're going to debate who is the best forward out of the other 8 teams in the WSL based on some criteria that I've made up.
Yep.
And big spoiler alert, none of them are Leicester players.
Yeah, so to be fair, I'm interested in the methodology, because you basically gave us the list of 6.
I had a long list of players. Yeah. Basically, all of the players that play in forward positions for those other 8 teams. And then I looked at output, basically. I looked at goals and assists for this season. Yeah. And then I narrowed it down based on that.
Yeah.
So
fair enough.
For that reason, there's no Everton players on the shortlist. There's no Leicester players on the shortlist because they just didn't hit the numbers.
Yes.
There's also some players where you could get into an argument of are they a forward? But I think we have to sort of narrow it down a little bit. But I just wanted to give some interesting background stats on attacking generally in the other 8 of the WSL this season, because there's some interesting things going on. So there's 4 teams in the other 8 that have dropped their goals per 90 from last season, so they're scoring less goals.
I can tell you one.
So Brighton have dropped from 1.55 to 1.17 per 90. West Ham have had probably the most significant drop-off, 1.59 to 0.79.
Right.
I haven't actually noted down how many goals they're currently on, but they're nowhere near last season's total of 35. So Leicester have dropped from 0.91 to 0.44, and in my notes I've written "kill me"
because we were so prolific last season.
Hang on, that's not a bigger drop off than West Ham? I suppose relatively it's around the same in terms of halving it.
50%, yeah.
Yeah. So interestingly, London City Lionesses, I had to do this a bit manually because there's not mega
Yes.
stats for the WSL2.
What's the championship?
So they've gone from 1.9 to 0.95 per 90. So you would kind of expect they were top of the league last season,
Yeah.
so they would be scoring more goals. And then they've come up as the newly promoted team. And I think that's quite interesting because obviously we know they're not like the promoted teams that have come up before, but their goals per 90 is currently only slightly better than Crystal Palace's
Okay.
was
Yes.
last season
Yes.
at 0.91, and Bristol's the season before, which was also 0.91. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, you think of the outlay they
Yeah.
put into that team. And I was just going to say with the Brighton drop-off, I think you can, I haven't looked at Brighton, you have, but I imagine a lot of that drop-off is probably down to Nikita Paris not being there.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that obviously LCL have signed her and yet the corresponding uplift hasn't really happened there.
Since Ada Mosher took over as well, their goals per 90 have dropped from 1.27 to 0.75. So since he took over, they've been less productive.
Will not be happy.
The shot on target percentage has dropped off and stuff like that. And they've only scored more than once in 4 games.
Yeah.
Leicester haven't scored more than once in any game.
You'll never seen that.
So there's 2 teams that have stayed the same. So Liverpool have literally, they're the same at the moment, 0.95 per 90, which is impressive given where they were at the start of the season.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, if you plotted that average along the course of the season, how much the last few weeks has brought them back up to
They beat Villa 4-1, stuff like that, didn't they? They've scored 3 at St Park.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's been a big swing, hasn't there?
Yes.
Villa have had a slight improvement from 1.36 to 1.37. Both of those teams, again, I'm going to talk about probably a big reason why their goal scoring has stayed the same. And then this team that's improved their goal scoring, it will come as no surprise to anyone, is Spurs. They've gone from 1 goal per 90 to 1.53. The problem with Spurs is
Defensively,
they've gone off the rails defensively. Having seen to have sorted that out at the start of the season, they've either... there's mitigating factors in terms of they've obviously had to break up their centre-back pairing while they went off to the Asian Cup. Now Claire Hunt's out. Maybe they've moved the famous Why Always She Matt Clough slider too far to attacking. I don't know, but they've upped their goal output anyway. So
yeah, I mean, I do have their most recent results in front of me, and in the last 4 games, there's been 10 goals, 3 goals, 7 goals, 7 goals, which does suggest a bit too much chaos.
I think Villa are similar as well. Not to throw everything at Spurs, but
yes.
But before we get into the shortlist, the players that we're going to chat about, obviously, I just wanted to give a bit of background context on what's going on with the goal scoring, sort of how these other 8 teams are attacking. I wanted you to talk about what makes a good forward. So, in the modern game, I guess, are we looking at an all-rounder? Are we looking at a specialist? What do you think makes a good forward?
I think it's a fascinating question, and I don't want to just sit on the fence, but I think it is massively dependent on the team. So I think if you look at someone like Bunny Shaw, like you say, she's on track to, once again, win the Golden Boot. I think you'd say she is very much a sort of a classic number 9 in that, I know she can run the channels, I know she can link the play, but really what she's being asked to do is very much, stay within the lines of the box, ideally stay in the box and score goals.
Does drop D?
She does.
Sometimes.
But
I think I'm just going to completely disagree with you there.
Yeah.
And I think that Bunny Shaw is playing that role because she's been asked to. I think Bunny Shaw could play. I think she's that good a player.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that at all, but I think the way City utilise her is very much as a number 9, get on the end
Makes sense,
of crosses, that kind of thing. But, I think it varies a lot. And I think, if you look at, I think both, I was going to say Arsenal men's team this season, but also Arsenal women's team, there's a lot of versatility there. You have Russo, who's played as the 9 for a lot of the season, has now kind of dropped into the 10, and it seems like the new configuration that Vega's first choice is Russo in the 10 with Blackstenius ahead of her. Obviously, Blackstenius is, again, I think probably less versatile than Russo, but is a very kind of, adventurous forward who you can use to stretch the line, can hit the channels, all of that kind of stuff.
And I think that could be an entire episode in itself, and it may be at some point,
Yes.
but I think that's a very interesting dynamic as well, because I completely agree that we said we weren't going to talk about the top four, and yet we are. But that's just a really interesting dynamic, because I think that, yeah, Russo's dropping deep, and she can, I think we've said before, she's like the best 10 that Arsenal have got, and she's not even really a 10.
Yeah.
But I think also, even with Blackstenius playing in the 9, they have like made themselves a little bit more unpredictable, a little bit more versatile, because she's being asked to do different things to what she would normally do. Like, yeah, you will obviously have occasions where she's just asked to either run the channels or like get, run off the shoulder of the last defender, which is what she's probably known best for.
Yeah.
But she's being asked to use her hold-up play more and drop in a bit more and just sort of alternate a little bit with Russo, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really interesting, and it's a really interesting case study for like what a forward is in the modern game. And that's when I sort of asked this question, that's sort of what I had in my head. But I thought it was useful to kind of bring that context to the table, because we are going to talk about, like, not all of the players that we're going to talk about are like, they're not all strikers, but wingers. We've got more like who you might consider as a winger or a wide forward.
Yeah.
So I think it was just interesting to set the scene.
I think the big thing is, obviously, if you have a striker who can do it all, like a Miedema or a Russo, then that's great. But I think it's a case of also, if you're having too much interchanging and too much versatility at the moment, I feel like that can be a hindrance. And I think, not to pick on them, but I think that's kind of what sort of ended up happening at Chelsea. Who, Chelsea in the league this season are being outscored by Arsenal, United, City by an absolute country mile, and Spurs are only, I think, 5 or 6 goals behind them. And I think if you watch what Chelsea, and I know a lot of this has been down to injuries and stuff, but, where Chelsea have been kind of having to deploy Alyssa Thompson in the 9, they've obviously gone for this very sort of fluid kind of, situation, whether that's the system or whether it's just the fact that Thompson isn't really comfortable just, leading the line and trying to, be on the end of chances like a Sam Kerr or an Aggie Beaver-Jones would be. I think that it's fair to say hasn't really worked. So I think obviously versatility is great, but I also think a system that can be, like you say, of Arsenal, can be varied and have a bit of kind of confusion for the opposition in there, but also isn't so loose and fluid that it just kind of
falls apart.
The players themselves don't really know where they are, who's where, who's the focal point, and it all just gets a bit kind of flabby.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there with the words focal point. I think no matter what sort of forward you're looking at, I think every attack needs a focal point, doesn't it? And that can come in many forms that we're going to talk about.
Yes.
But I think Chelsea's a good example where at times this season they've lacked a focal point.
Yes, lots of attackers on the pitch, but you're like, well, who's actually going to score the goal here?
Well,
everyone else is you're all trying to facilitate something. Who's actually the one who's just going to put the foot through it?
Certainly, the last few games, even with Sam Kerr on the pitch, there's been a lot of like, well, we'll just give Lauren James the ball. And then everyone's just sort of static, waiting for her to do something.
Yes.
But again, focal point.
Yes.
Anyway, so I think we've landed on there, haven't we? It depends. It depends what you need.
Yeah, I think versatility is great. And if you'd said, do you want just a pure number 9 Sam Kerr style, or do you want someone who can drop deep, link the play, blah, 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 do this, do that? You'd obviously want the more versatile player. That sounds very harsh on Sam Kerr. I apologise to Sam Kerr and the nation of Australia. But, I think you want them in a sort of a structure that can play to their strengths. So that's a very long-winded way of saying it depends. But I think there's, having the number, the physical, powerful forward, like you have with Bunny, like you have arguably with Blackstone, is great. I think you can also make the case that you want someone sort of, quicker, more of a poacher, like Sam Kerr.
Yeah. So, it depends. Player for the right system.
Yes.
So now we've cleared that up in a way. As I mentioned, I produced a long list of forwards. I looked at goals and assists just in the league. We're just talking about the WSL. We might talk a little bit about other competitions just to bring context, but in terms of numbers, I'm just looking at the WSL. And then, so I kind of tried to pick this season. It doesn't sound like a lot, but we were in a short season, aren't we? and then sort of discounted other players based on the fact that they're not technically forwards. So, like, looking at someone like Kerry Holland, for example, who's had 3 goals and 2 assists for Liverpool this season, like, I know she's been playing pretty much on the wing, but she is really a midfielder. You asked me about Olivia Holt, who you might talk about, I guess, later, who's had 9 goal involvements for Spurs this season, but does technically play a bit deeper.
Yes.
I'm looking at my spreadsheet here, and I've got someone like Nadine Nordam for Brighton, who's had 5 assists and no goals.
Yeah.
But she's definitely a midfielder.
Yes.
So as I've mentioned, we have got some kind of winger-ish profiles, strikers, and more like sort of wide forwards.
Yeah.
We've got 6 players. We've got 3 each. They all play for different teams. And we're going to talk about them a little bit. And then we're going to give them a score out of 10 on these 4 criteria that I have made up for judging a good forward. So, output, how many goals, how many assists, versatility, clutchness, so can you depend on them to get you a goal when you need them to haul you out the shit, and consistency, so can they sustain this over a season and over a number of seasons. And then I guess we'll either add up the scores and then we'll just say, well, the person with the highest number gets the crown, or we'll debate it. I don't know. The 6 players that we're going to talk about are Shakira Martinez, Kiko Seiko, Bethany England.
I've gone for a hybrid Spurs one.
So I did give you the option of Beth England or Katinka Tandberg.
Or Olivia Holt.
Oh, okay. You've just gone completely off piece then, whatever. You're talking about 3 different players.
Yes.
Then. Matt's going to talk about Spurs. Kirsty Hansen, Freya Godfrey, and Peter Olsen. Those are our players / attacking unit. Yeah. Matt, would you like to kick us off with Shakira Martinez?
I mean, I think Shakira Martinez is one of the most sort of, I guess, high profile after what happened last season players involved in this discussion. Obviously, after last season, when she just went completely mad, when she came in January, it was a slower start to this year. I think I said on the podcast when I was kind of desperately trying to find reasons why Leicester weren't going to finish bottom, I sort of said with Martinez, it felt like whatever happened this season, West Ham weren't going to get the same output from her, purely on the basis that if she'd continued as she'd finished last season, someone would have picked her up in January, someone would have poached her, and the alternative was she doesn't score as many goals, and therefore they're not getting the same kind of output from her. And as we know, it's been a case of the sort of drop off in output rather than someone poaching her. She still had what I would class as a very good season, 6 goals, hasn't had any assists. She's never had an assist in the WSL in almost, a season and a half now, which probably speaks to her kind of role style, in that West Ham team, which kind of dovetails nicely with what we were just talking about.
She's a focal point.
The systems and the focal point. And yeah, I mean, last season was obviously ridiculous. She scored 10 goals from 15 shots on target, which if for anyone who doesn't follow those stats that closely, that is completely unprecedented and unsustainable. It's pretty amazing she sustained that for as long as she did anyway.
She did score 4 of those goals against Crystal Palace.
Yes.
But again, like you say, from 15 shots on target.
Yeah. So she's now scored 16 WSL goals in, I think, 27 matches worth of 90 minutes, if that makes sense. 90 minutes. So yeah, that's still a pretty phenomenal return, given she's playing in a team that spent most of their time kind of down towards the bottom of the league. You mentioned that West Ham kind of average goals per 90 stat and how it's dropped off this season. If you were to, I think, plot West Ham's average goal scoring last season, you would see a much lower number than what they ended up on for most of the season. And then Martinez arrives, does her thing for those few games, and that average shoots up. And then obviously this season, she's reverted to the mean a little bit, still their top goal scorer, but it's, just not quite at the rate she was doing last season.
I think a big contributing factor there as well is the fact that SIE had the joint most goal involvements in the WSL last season and has completely dropped off a cliff.
Yes, it feels like she's...
So that's another...
massively.
Literally, I think Martinez is kind of...
I think she is carrying the team.
She is carrying the team in terms of goal scoring at the moment.
Certainly in terms of going forward. I think, Ueki's once again had a very classic Ueki season in that she's super industrious, a real pest, but her output isn't ever that high. Fionn Morgan's obviously come in and has looked pretty solid. I think she's taken a bit of time to readjust to the WSL, but I think, like you say, that last season it was Asahi in the form of her life and Martinez possibly in the form of her life. And yeah, it was just a magic combination kind of thing.
Yeah, I think his role has sort of changed a little bit as well, because I think before Martinez arrived, Ueki was probably like, what's that focal point? And she does play that role for Japan.
Yes.
Now with Martinez, she's more of the focal point. How many times are we going to say focal point in this episode? And then Ueki sort of plays off her a bit more. Ueki's had 4 assists this season.
Yes.
I don't know how many of those were for Martinez, but considering West Ham haven't scored that many goals, I imagine it's a few of them.
There must be some connection.
So, I think interesting dynamics. Go on, sorry.
So, just to round it off on Martinez, obviously we just talked about Chelsea. Martinez will only be 25 at the start of next season. And I think of the sort of general profile of players that are in the WSL right now, and given the fact that Sam Kerr is all but nailed on to be leaving Chelsea, it sounds like Myra Ramirez may also be on the way. I think there's a decent chance she will end up at Chelsea next season.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I heard it here first.
Yeah.
I think that would be a very sensible signing. I think that's a profile that they definitely need.
Do you want my numbers?
Yeah, scores on the doors, please.
Yeah, so I've got her output as 6 for this season. I think, the fact she doesn't assist at all is a bit of a sort of a dampener on her compared to the other players I've got. Versatility, I've only got her down as a 3. Again, she's been asked to play a very specific role. It's not to say she's not a good player and couldn't do other stuff, but I think, again, purely looking at the other players I've got in my list, I think that's a mark against her. Clutchness, I've got her as an 8 out of 10. So she's currently 10th in the league this season for on-pitch, off-pitch team success. So basically, if you look at a team's overall goal difference and then look at the goal difference for when that player is just on the pitch versus when they're off it, how much of a swing is there towards that player? And basically, there's only 9 players in the league who have a better kind of team swing, where the team performs that much better than when they're not on the pitch than Martinez. So in that sense, she is having a big impact on West Ham. They're basically a lot worse. And then consistency, I've got her down as a 7 because, again, she obviously had a super hot phase, slower start to the season, but, she's kind of rallied. And again, if she can score sort of 6 to 8 goals consistently in a team like West Ham, again, no offence to West Ham, but that's a pretty good mark of a player, in my opinion, and will probably mean that she ends up getting a move fairly soon.
Have you got a total there? Can
I add 9 plus 8 plus 7? I've got 18, 24 as a total.
24 for Shakira Martinez. Okay, fabulous. Solid opener, solid score there for Shakira. I like the very hot take that she will go to Chelsea.
Yeah.
You didn't say I think, you said she'll go.
I just think it's a kind of a very nice match, and it's whether Chelsea have got their eye on someone from abroad, someone Bompastel's worked with at Lyon or something like that. But I just think she's London-based. She's, unfortunately, again, no offence to West Ham, but probably too good for West Ham. Will probably have her eyes set on a big move because she wants to force her way into that Germany team. And it's literally, she's living in the city already.
Fair enough.
It makes sense to me.
Interesting. Right. So I'm going to talk now about Kirsty Hansen. So I think if you had asked me this question and who do you think the best forward is in the other 8 of the WSL, and I hadn't looked at any stats or anything like that, I would have said Kirsty Hansen. I have got stats here, but you did a much better job of painting a picture with your stats than I have. This is more vibey.
That's
for me.
Vibes are fine.
So obviously Kirsty Hansen is 2nd top goal scorer in the WSL at the moment.
Yes. Which for our purposes makes it quite hard to argue that she's the best.
She's scored 12 goals, which is ridiculous, particularly in a team like Villa. She's only assisted once, which I have marked down a little bit on versatility for that reason. I think she's an interesting one, really, because she was at Man United until 2022, sort of struggling for minutes in the end. And I was kind of looking back, and was probably played more as a sort of right-sided attacking midfielder, which I think if you think about her strengths, which is like her pace and her directness, I think potentially is why she was maybe not quite meshing, and maybe like her output wasn't as fantastic as it has been this season in some of the seasons for Villa. Her best season with Man United, she got 5 goals and 2 assists, and she played like over 1,000 minutes. But her other 2 seasons with Man United, she played under 1,000 minutes. I don't know, looking back, whether there was some injuries in there, but I know I've listened to her on a podcast before and speaking about struggling for playing time at Man United. So I think potentially just wasn't a good fit for her. I think she had her first season at Villa, she had a really, really good season. She got 7 goals and 9 assists. So a bit of context there probably is that was Rachel Daly's Golden Boot season. I think, you know, Alicia Lehman probably had like ridiculous numbers that season as well in terms of assists. But yeah, again, like probably was pushed up a little bit further and played out on the left wing, which is probably where we're more used to seeing her these days in the WSL, is on that left side. And then, yeah, I think 23, 24 and 24, 25 were quite poor really by her standards. I mean, 23, 24 was pretty abject really. She only got 1 assist and no goals. And then last season, not bad for, you know, a winger in the WSL, 3 goals, 4 assists, not bad. But if we look at, I'll say that first season with Villa and then this season, it's like, where was this player? So this season, her shot on target percentage is 50%.
Yes.
Which is pretty crazy. I think that's one of the best in the league.
Not just having like 1 shot every 5.
Yeah. And then but like that season that I just said where she basically did nothing. She was 23.8%. So she sort of really dropped off. I remember that season, didn't she get sent off in like the first game and then missed 3 games? So that maybe like threw her off.
I think I remember us having a chat and sort of saying that's so harsh, because not only is it harsh red, but it means she will now miss the rest of this game, and you know, you're over 10% of the season if you get a 3-match suspension, which I think she did. So
yeah, maybe that was a contributing factor. But yeah, I think what's happened this season and why she's been so effective, and I've seen people talk about like, oh, it's so impressive because she's achieving this in a team like Villa, who like haven't been that great. They've been a bit inconsistent, but she's been consistently scoring goals. I think my take on that is she is overperforming her XG by like 5.3.
Wow. Okay. She's running very, very hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think that I just think in terms of the eye test, she's always really impressed me. I like her directness, her speed, and her physicality. I've never found her particularly, like, I don't think, looking at her numbers, and I think, again, the eye test, I don't think she's particularly good at ball control or passing, which might speak to her sort of numbers as when she was more of a winger or more of a wide. I just think that this system that Arroyo's got her playing in is absolutely perfect for her. The sort of split striker system where she can just run that left channel and cut in. It's just been absolutely perfect for her.
And Grantwell and Salmon, I think it's just, you've got 3 very quick, very direct forwards who will thrive on standing on, lurking on the shoulder of the last defender and trying to beat that offside trap.
And it works perfectly. Yeah. She's good defensively. She does do her work. When she's more of a winger, she will track back and do that. But I think just unlocking her and allowing her to just literally focus on running onto long balls. Yeah. I know it sounds like I'm sort of reducing her to quite a simple player, but I think she is quite a simple player. She's quite simple and direct.
And can finish.
And her shot accuracy and her conversion rate in this system has been incredible. So I think it's just been almost tailor-made for her. Yeah. And I'm interested to see, you know, if she stays at Villa, if Arroyo's still there, like continues to play a system, whether she can keep up these numbers. Yeah. Because as will be reflected in her consistency score, I feel like over her time in the WSL, like I said, she has played different roles, played under different managers, different teams, but like I just feel like, numbers good, but like not, if we look at this season.
This feels a bit like an outlier.
And then the last couple of seasons, it's a bit choppy and changing. It's not that consistent. But
I think it's also credit to Arroyo for spotting this, because again, you know, we're not on this podcast famously not immune from criticising managers who are just saying, no, I've got a system or I've got a philosophy, and then just shoving players into positions that don't suit them. Whereas it does feel like under Arroyo, Villa have sort of evolved into this team where it's all about this really, really quick counter-attacking style. And then you look at the forwards and it's like, yeah, this makes sense. So you can be harsh and look at Villa and say, well, were it not for Kirsty Hansen, they would be really struggling. Defensively, they're not good. And without Hansen's output, they're also not great going forward. But I think you can flip that on its head and say, well, Arroyo's actually adjusted the team and she deserves a lot of credit for facilitating what, again, like you say, a lot of past managers at Villa and at Man United maybe have been unable to see as Hansen's like best attributes.
I think we were talking about the team generally, but in terms of their general output and whatever, I think they've been massively hampered by their injuries this season.
Of course, yeah.
They've had all sorts of... And I think she's basically... Obviously, you spoke about Chastity Grant and Ebony Salmon, but I feel like Grant's played more like a wing-back.
Yeah.
Salmon's more of a super sub. Hansen's been
the one, yeah,
carrying the team.
Yeah, there's
no Daly.
Daly's been out.
Nunez has been out all season. This whole season. So Hansen has been the focal point. Yeah, I was just actually looking and she's taking 3.5 shots per 90.
Yeah, I mean, again, which is like you say,
that is less than Ebony Salmon.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, to be honest.
But in terms of like, if I'm looking at here, the players above her, someone like Russo is like 3.96, but her shots on target are lower. So actually, like I say, her shot on target rate at the moment, coupled with the amount of shots that she's having, it's just ridiculous. And yeah, I think I've given her, I keep alluding to it, but I've given her high clutch score because there have been particular important clutch performances this season. She got the winner against Leicester.
Famously, yes.
She got the winner against Brighton. She got them back into the game against Chelsea, which, nearly, it was a very close game. It was 4-3 in the end. Got them back into the game initially against Spurs.
Yep.
Until that went absolutely insane. I think that was 1-0 when she scored her first goal. And then she equalised against, when they were away at United. No, they won away at United. She equalised when they were at home against United. And United went on to score 3 more, but could have gone either way at that point. So, yeah, I just think, as we've said, she's been so important to that Villa team. So her scores on the doors, of her output, like this season, I've given her a 9.
Yeah, can't argue with that.
Maybe I should give her a 10.
I think given, she is second in the league.
Let's 10.
Let's up that.
I've given her, for versatility, I've given her a 5.
Yeah.
It feels a bit harsh, but I just feel like the level of output that she's at is because of this specific system that she's playing in.
Yep. Yeah. So, she can play there, but you spelled it out with the numbers there. She can play other positions, of course she can, but she's not going to be impacting the game
just think
in any way as much as she is currently.
I can't see how she'd be like more central. I can't see her dropping deep and picking the ball up. Do you know what I mean? I can see her like being like a more of a winger in the vein of like, I don't know, Lauren James or Lauren Hemp, where they carry the ball. She's not that sort of player, so that hence the lower score. Clutchness, I've given her a 9. I would give her a 10, but they haven't won enough games for that to be up to a 10. And consistency, again, maybe a bit harsh, but I've given her a 5 just because, like I say, if I was drawing a graph of her output over the last however many seasons, well, I suppose her career in the WSL, it would be like peaks and troughs and peaks and troughs. And obviously, forwards run hot, don't they?
Yeah, of course.
A forward's goal scoring form depends on so many things, including the team around them. But I just think, she hasn't been consistent enough for me to give her a high score. So that gives her a total of 29.
Which sounds fair to me.
So that's Kirsty Hansen. So would you like to talk about your 3-pronged Spurs attack?
Yeah, so...
just to give some context here, I gave you the option of either Bethany England or Katinka Tangberg, who have got the same amount of goal involvements. England scored more goals, but I think, actually, some of those are penalties, but I think Tangberg scored penalties as well, or a penalty.
England and Tangberg have both scored a penalty.
There we go. So I gave you the option, and you've apparently ignored both of those options, and you're going to talk about Olivia Holt, even though she's not actually a forward.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
She plays very advanced. I think in the Spurs system, it is quite fluid as well. I think in terms of goal involvements, goals and assists, Holt has 9, England has 8, Tangberg has 7. And as you said, both England and Tangberg have had a penalty. So if you want to be really harsh, you can knock one off both of them. Yeah, basically, I didn't just overrule you for no apparent reason, but basically, the more I dug into the numbers on England and Tamberg, the more I just kept coming across Holt and thinking, I don't know if I can ignore her here. So even though she's technically a 10 and that kind of thing, or whatever you want to say, I think I can persuade you that she is the one. Obviously, England, fantastic career, in the WSL, still doing it, still, one of the best players in the league by a distance, I think. Berg's obviously come in this season, has looked like the player who famously Spurs last season, it felt like it was England or bust. I think Berg coming in hasn't really dulled England's output in it, and if anything, she's actually just taken the burden off her from being the only number 9 in the squad. I think for me, Holt has just been kind of integral to what Spurs have been able to do this season going forward. She's played more minutes than either Tamberg or England. She's leading Spurs in goals and assists, even though she hasn't scored a penalty. I give her kind of extra points in that regard, just because she isn't stuck up front at any point and just told all you're needing to do here is finish chances. I say all you're needing to do here. Like I'm not a Leicester fan who haven't seen no one finish our chances. But she also leads Spurs in successful dribbles. I think she's second in chances created. It's just kind of pretty crazy output. I know she only came into Spurs last season, but I think maybe a little bit like Hansen, kind of from the eye test last year, it was kind of like I was surprised she wasn't getting more game time. And obviously Martin Ho's come in over the summer and has kind of, again, I don't want to be too harsh on Robert Villahamn, because maybe she was just coming up to speed in the league and that kind of thing. Martin Ho's come in and said sort of straight away, you're the basically integral to the team. And again, we talked about on the podcast quite a bit about how Spurs in the summer didn't really do that much in terms of transfers, and maybe it was a sort of testing the waters phase with Martin Ho, but also maybe it was a kind of, he came in and was like, well, you've got Olivia Holt, who is brilliant, and yeah, I'm quite happy, you don't need to sign me Signe Gaupset just yet because you've already got Olivia Holt, kind of thing. I don't want to jump straight into my scores and stuff like that for her, but I just think, 9 goal involvements is very, very good given the position she plays. She's not that versatile, really. I think, again, would you stick her up front and hit long balls to her? Probably not, no. But, in terms of the goals she is scoring, there's been a real variety there. Some long-range shots, some nice finishes. And then what really swung it for me is the clutchness, as you put it, just how kind of integral she's been. She scored the winner against Leicester, a 95th minute winner against Villa. She got 2 assists in the 3-3 draw with United, which, let's be honest, really should have been the pivotal contribution to that match because they should have won it, and also scored the winner against West Ham. And, in terms of her consistency as well, she's obviously 9 goal involvements. Those have been spread across 7 matches this season. So it's not like, again, using the Martinez example from last season, it's not like she was just, kind of plundering goals against a couple of quite bad teams. I know Martinez didn't do that exclusively, but a bunch of those goals came against Palace. So I think there's a body of work there to point to her maybe having the edge over Tamberg and England at the moment.
Yeah.
Have I convinced you?
Fair enough. And yeah, I think undenied we've put in her on the list because looks like you could argue she plays as a winger, but I feel like it's, like I say, it's quite fluid.
Yeah.
And when I think about her, I don't think about her as being a forward.
No, I think that's fair.
But I think where we've seen Spurs really pick, those numbers I referenced at the start of the episode, where they're, I think, the only team that have improved their goal scoring.
That's really improved it.
Outside of the top 4, I haven't looked at their stats, but that has significantly improved.
Yes. At least across those 3 players.
Well, no, I think there's more threats in there. You've got Gaupset now thrown in there as well. I think in that 7-3 against Villa, I think there were 6 different goal scorers.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like, and then they're all completely different profiles as well. Like Tamberg and England are completely different prospects as strikers.
Gaupset and Holt.
Gaupset and Holt, and then you've got Hermano thrown in there as well.
Yeah.
So it's like there's just so many options there, and perhaps the fluidity sometimes lends itself to the less defensively sound sort of situation that they sometimes find themselves in. But I think what was really interesting, for example, in the FA Cup game against Chelsea, they really approached that very sensibly, and they were very, very structured, much more cautious.
Yeah.
And Olivia Holt didn't start that game, which I was very surprised about.
Yeah. And I think that might be a part of it.
But
that's the, she has that license to just roam forward and attack, and maybe that was what Martin Ho was thinking.
Yeah.
And again, might not trying to desperately prove my point and say she's worthy of a position in this conversation, but again, that's normally the sort of move you'd make with a sort of maybe a striker or a wide player, but instead it's like if she's the player you're thinking, no, she's too attacking or too, not going to offer us enough defensively. Whereas, someone like Beth England, for example, again, a bit like Hansen, you said, she can obviously put in a big defensive shift as well. We know what she can do. Then, that might hint at how Martin Ho sees Holt in terms of her role in the team.
You've vaguely convinced me. So do you want to give me Olivia Holt's scores on the doors?
Yeah,
please?
Sure.
Even though she's not eligible. No,
again,
I'm joking.
Feel free to argue with me on these. So output, I've got 8. Again, just, 9 goal involvements, none of them penalties. Very, very good numbers. And again, a big part of why Spurs have improved there. Versatility, I've gone for 4, just because I think she's obviously very attacking, very versatile in an attacking sense. But I think she's probably one of those players where if you shoved her out wide or shoved her in the 9, you wouldn't necessarily get anywhere near the same results. A little bit like you were saying with Hansen, it feels like the current setup is very much designed to facilitate what she can do.
Yeah, I think that she does sort of shade wide a little bit. So that's where the sort of confusion about her position comes in. But
I'd say
I know what you mean.
Shades wide in order to then cut inside. She's not a winger.
Yeah, I'm just looking at her sort of previous season heat maps for Rosengard, for example. And she was, it looks like 2024, she was more like a left winger.
Yes.
But again, like you say, there's sort of that more cutting inside vibe, and then looking back 2023, she's more spread around, so maybe you need to up your versatility score a little bit.
Yeah, maybe, or maybe it's just that this is her best position.
Maybe.
Clutchness, I've gone for 8, which I don't know if that's too high, but again, like I say, she's had a pretty decisive impact. I think she scored 3 winning goals and had a game where she got 2 assists. So I would sort of say, she's done enough there.
No, that's fair.
And consistency, I've gone for 7 because, again, she's managed to spread those goals and assists quite nicely. It's not like, again, not being a flat track bully kind of situation. Mm-hmm. And that gives us a score of 27.
Okay. So it's lower than Kirsty Hansen.
It is. Which I think is probably fair reflection of the season as a whole.
Fair enough. Right, well, that was Olivia Holt then. Thank you for overriding me, but you made a good argument. Next, I will talk about Kiko Sakai. So here's a bit of an interesting one. I think that in terms of the players that I've looked at, and maybe even of the players that we're talking about, I think she's probably the most versatile.
I'd agree. I
think she can play all across the front 3 and probably drop into the sort of 10. Mm-hmm. I think like most... we know we've got a lot of Japanese players in the WSL now. We know that they are more often than not very, very technically skilled. And I think that you can see that with Sakai. I can see, when I think about Sakai, I think about some really audacious, technical finishes. Was it against Chelsea? I can't
lob.
She did a lob, but it was the outside of the boot. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think it was against Chelsea.
I think so. I think you're right.
She's created 24 chances this season, which was the most out of any player that I've looked at. And when I was just looking quickly, I was like, well, Frank Kirby will have created more. But no.
No, it's all about Sakai.
It's all about Sakai. But she's created... There's another Brighton player who's created the same amount of chances as Kiko Sakai. Would you like to guess who that is?
Oh, goodness me. Hayley?
Nope.
Rosa Kaji?
Nope.
I think you're going to have to tell me.
It's Marceli Slagers.
Oh, okay.
Which I don't think is that surprising. She's quite an advanced fullback.
Yeah.
And I think she scored a couple of goals, actually. Yeah, so as I've sort of said there, like I feel like she is more versatile than others I've mentioned. Like looking back at her career that I have the stats for, she was playing in Japan for Uro Reds.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And she was more of like a winger, wide midfielder for them. She had an absolutely ridiculous season. A season before she came to the WSL, she scored 20 goals and got 10 assists.
That's pretty decent.
Which is absolutely insane.
And still can't get in the Japan team.
Well, yeah, I was really surprised at the Asian Cup. Like, not to say that Ueki's not a good player, but I was really surprised that you didn't come on.
Well, I mean, Japan have now sacked the manager as well, so maybe maybe the Japanese FA thought the same thing.
But yeah, I think you alluded to at the start of the episode, like obviously losing Nikita Paris, and then Gyamang was going to be their sort of attacking focal point, and then unfortunately did her ACL, so they've had to sort of change their approach. But I think what they've done plays to Seiko's strengths in terms of, like I say, you can shift her around a little bit. You can play her as more of a wide forward. You can play her as a 9. She can sort of come off the wing, and then obviously you've got someone like Hayley as well, who's really good at holding the ball up. So they're quite good at playing off each other. I think I should say as well, like Frank Kirby basically makes everything tick.
Yeah.
I think she is better in this Brighton system. I think I prefer to see her lead in the line on her own, where she can sort of drop into the pockets and link up with Kirby.
Yeah.
I think watching them play against Arsenal in the FA Cup, she was basically anonymous, which I was, again, really surprised about. But I feel like in that game, they went for more of a front two with Hayley because they couldn't play Kafaji.
Yeah.
And she just sort of was like stuck out in the right channel, not really able to make much impact. And it was sort of, I think she got hooked at half time and Camacho came in. And yeah, I just feel like, she's probably better when she's a bit more free to sort of roam about, like I say, drop into space, link up with Kirby, which I think that's sort of, I'm going to up her versatility score as I'm talking, actually, because I think as a forward, I think maybe she doesn't offer you like loads defensively. So I'll get onto her scores. So output, I've gone for 7, just because even, that ridiculous season in Japan aside, like 6 goals last season, 7 goals this season, as it stands.
Yeah.
And then 4 assists last season, 2 assists. Good. Yeah. Not setting the world alight numbers.
No, but I think as well, to be fair to Seiko as well, like you say, because of that versatility, maybe she's not always in a position to score the goals, but she offers quite a lot of intangibles.
24 chances created.
Yeah.
Versatility, I've given her an 8.
Yep.
I feel like that is her strength as a forward, is her versatility, as well as her technical ability and various other things. Clutchness, I've given her a 6. Like I say, can go missing sometimes in games. Not always the one where you can be like, we can 100% count on Seiko for a goal.
Yeah.
And consistency, I've given her a 7. Again, maybe a little bit low, and she is hitting decent numbers, but like I say, not
Kirsty Hansen numbers.
Not Kirsty Hansen numbers, but maybe that's a bit harsh. I'll up her consistency up to an 8, because she hasn't had like a real poor season.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I'll up it to an 8. So that puts Seiko on 29, which is the same score as Hansen.
Very good.
So, interesting. But I feel like very strong contenders, but in different ways.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about Freya Godfrey then?
Yes, I do.
I think, sorry.
Go ahead.
I wanted to try and talk about, like, to make sure we spoke about one of the London City Lionesses' sort of attacking players, because I think it's an interesting one. But her numbers aren't mega, are they?
Yeah, 4 goals and 4 assists. I think almost the story with Freya Godfrey is, as you may have been about to say just then, is she's the numbers aren't huge, like you say, compared to Holt, compared to some of the others, Hansen particularly, that we're talking about here. But I think really the kind of story of LCL season is how kind of disappointing they have been going forward. Defensively they've been pretty solid, generally speaking. But yeah, I just think, when they came up with the signings they made, with the players they've got, signing Paris, obviously still got Aslani, still got Goodwin. I just think given the profile of the project and that kind of thing, I think everyone was sort of expecting this might be quite a chaotic, pell-mell attacking team. And instead, they've actually been quite good defensively and, like I say, quite disappointing really going forward. like you say there, it's pretty stark when you consider they're basically on a par with, you know, Bristol City and Crystal Palace in terms of their goal scoring at the moment, which, again, you can't imagine that Michelle Kang is particularly happy about it, especially given the amount of money that they have invested. I think Freya Godfrey has been a bit of a, you know, a bright spot in otherwise quite a disappointing attacking season for LCL. You know, she's 13th in the league for goals and assists per 90. She's also the youngest player in the top 30 for that stat. I think you have to go to down to 31 to find a player who's only 20, as she is. I think you can also make a case for her being one of the most important attacking players to her respective team. As we said, LCL have been quite disappointing. The numbers she's put up, 4 goals and 4 assists, aren't mega, but that's 40% of LCL's goals in the WSL. I believe only Hansen and Bunny Shaw have contributed more of their team's respective goal percentage by themselves. And obviously, like we say, Hansen, it feels like the system has been kind of constructed around her. And Bunny Shaw, we know she is very much, again, the focal point of the attack, very much the City. And it feels like a lot of that City kind of project is there to facilitate her goal scoring, basically. So for Godfrey to be doing this in a team of superstars where, you know, I think at the start of the season when they're, you know, signing Gaoro, doing this, doing that, signing Paris, all of these kind of big name players coming in, you could be forgiven to kind of overlook the fact that they'd really signed her. And yet she's the one who is really kind of pretty pivotal to where they are in the league and actually not being a real disaster from, you know, an attacking point of view, because it's not even you know, she is a centre forward who is tapping in chances and you kind of be like, well, yeah, you could stick whoever in there. You could, if that was another player, they'd score that, because as we know, she's also scored in the space of sort of 8 months in the WSL, kind of basically already got a signature goal, which is cutting inside and bending it into the top corner with her left foot.
Yeah.
It must be a very weird dynamic in that LCL dressing room, to be honest, because I think you'd be looking around and thinking, well, how have we ended up in this situation where we're almost relying on a 20-year-old to haul us out the shit, really, and actually make something happen going forward, when we've got again, Paris, who's scored all these goals in the WSL, Aslani, who I now know is obviously injured, but is, you know, sort of basically a legendary forward, you know. Even I know Gaoro's goal scoring is not a strong suit, but there's players in that team. Look at Alana Kennedy at the Asian Cup. You know, there's players in that team who you'd expect to be the ones be nope, I'm going to take the ball by the horns here and really kick us on. And yeah, it's Godfrey who's the one who's doing it.
I mean, it hadn't really hit home to me that was the case. Until you've just talked us through it, it's mad, isn't it? And you're looking at someone like Goodwin, who was got the golden boot in the WSL2 last season. It's a different league, but I just don't think has been able to sort of hit the heights that she would have hoped to in the WSL. And I think, I mean, there's such a strange and interesting case study, aren't they, for squad building, or I don't even know if you can call it squad building, but
squad. I don't for the wall.
I mean, they've had a manager change in the middle and everything, but I liked the sort, and I think the move away from the split striker front two dynamic for Paris and Goodwin has obviously benefited Godfrey, because she's a winger, and she's getting more game time as a result. And then also, like I say, her output is brilliant relative to the team that she's in. But I just think, it's really interesting, but also, it's interesting to think about their recruitment. Again, it comes down to how batshit their recruitment strategy is. The fact that they went out and got, I think, when I think about their recruitment last summer and the superstars that they brought in, all of their superstars really are midfielders.
Yes.
So Van der Donk,
the big striker sign that arguably was Paris.
I was really Paris is obviously a very good player, but she's not
it's not like Hegerberg or someone like that.
Or somebody up and coming. But we could argue, Freya Godfrey's up and coming now, but we didn't know at the time, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they didn't try and bring in Aggie Beaver-Jones.
Yeah, I was really surprised that they didn't bring in somebody, you know what I mean, who was already hitting double figures.
Absolutely, and obviously the huge irony of all this is they were trying to sign Beth Mead, who plays in exactly the same position as Godfrey. So, you know, if any LCL fans or Michelle can want to get in touch and be like, oh no, this is always the master plan. I'm calling fucking bullshit on that, because let's be honest, they got a whiff that Beth Mead might be surplus the requirements at Arsenal, or that they had a whiff of being able to sign her, and we're like, yeah, absolutely, let's bring her in, team lioness, all this. And, you know, if they do that, then I think Mead's having a great season. But, you know, I haven't got her numbers to hand, so I don't know how they compare, but it's obviously very different kettle of fish playing in a pretty free scoring, free attacking Arsenal team and playing in an LCL team that is currently on a par with Crystal Palace last season in terms of going forward. I think it's very hard to argue that this was part of the master plan, and who knows, it's LCL, so they might come back in for Beth Mead in the summer and then be like, oh yeah, what do we do about Godfrey, the player who's actually saved our season? Oh well, we'll figure it out. But yeah, I think she's been called up for England. Unfortunately, she's not made her debut yet, and she's had to pull out the squad with injury. So that's not going to happen this time around. But yeah, I think she's having a sort of low-key, very, very good season.
I don't think it's low-key.
I think the numbers aren't as eye-catching as like a Kirsty Hansen or something like that. And obviously, again, just playing in that team, it feels like every week they're going to be like, oh yeah, they signed Van der Donk or something like that. You know, it's like every week you sort of, her star is almost eclipsed by some of the stars that they have on the pitch. But yeah, she's the one kind of making it happen with more consistency than anyone else in that team, really. So, and yeah, obviously with Aslani now being out injured, I know there's only a few games left in the season, but Aslani will presumably miss the bulk of next season as well. Like I say, it depends on what happens in the summer and, you know, which agent gets in the ear of LCL's leadership and means that they're suddenly signing Beth Mead or whoever. But, you know, I think that's the one position arguably that they don't really need to worry about across the forward line at the moment is that right wing.
I mean, I could go off on a tangent here, but like, yeah, again, like in the summer, it's like the three players that they've been linked with, or the rumours have come out of, Mary Earps, Mappy Leon and Beth Mead, which for me just like completely perfectly sums up their recruitment policy.
Yes, arguably like, the three positions where they don't need
three positions where you don't need any recruitment.
Yeah,
they're all over 30.
Yes,
they're all like mega stars in the women's game.
Yeah,
like it just perfectly sums it up.
Yes, like, Mappy and Mead both have had major injuries as well in the past. So again, like just it just feels crazy. I'm honestly, I'm amazed at and again, who knows, it's LCL, so it probably will come to pass, but I'm amazed with my men's football hat on, with projects like LCLs that we've seen in the past, like when City got their first takeover, they always seem to gravitate towards the flashy centre forward who's going to score a bunch of goals. And I'm amazed they've not done, you know, we've not heard about, LCL have come in for Payor or someone like that, you know, something absolutely mind-boggling, you know, like Sophia Wilson or you know, someone like that.
Tenwich winger.
Just some. Whereas, like you say, it's kind of been all the superstars have been concentrated in midfield.
Yeah.
Or you know, and to be fair, defence as well. You know, some big names coming in there. But yeah, it's
maybe they should sign Martinez.
I honestly feel like
I think it would make more sense than signing bloody Mappy Leon.
It would probably be too sensible a signing, and probably not like, oh, is she going to get bums on seats? Is she going to sell shirts? Is she going to convert people to LCL fans? No. Who will? Beth Mead, right?
True.
Then.
True.
I get that that's a commercial consideration as well, but I just think from a purely footballing perspective, I don't know why I know why you'd look at Mead. She's a great player, but
You've got Beth Mead at home, LCL.
Yeah, I'd be looking at a bunch of other players and positions before I would look at Mead.
Actually, like the way that she cuts in and switches onto it reminds me of Mead, actually, Freya Godfrey.
I have in my notes I wrote this before she pulled out of the England squad, but I was like, is it finally a player who can wrestle that position off me? And is she going to do it by basically patenting her own shop? Are we about to see the Mead chop be superseded by the Godfrey chop?
I like the Godfrey chop. What does that sound like?
Sounds like a character out of Canterbury Tale.
Do you want to give us the Freya Godfrey scores on the door? Sorry, we went on a bit of a tangent, didn't we, about LCL?
Yeah, so I've got her output at 7. I know the numbers aren't huge, but again, as a proportion of what LCL have done and the fact that I think a lot of the goals have been, you know, entirely of her own making, they're not just tapping, I'm giving her a 7 there. Versatility, I've gone 6. I know I think she has played sort of further back in the past, but I think we're kind of seeing Godfrey in her natural position and at her best. I don't know if she would offer a huge amount elsewhere on the pitch. I've gone for 6. So she made she scored of her 3 of her 8 goals and assists. I think 3 of them came in a match against Spurs. She scored the winner against Brighton, and she got the assist in a 1-1 draw with West Ham. So clutchness, she's not had the impact of like a Holt or a Martinez in my book. But then, consistency, I've also got her as a 6, just because, again, of those 8 goals and assists, 3 of them did come in one match. And I think of her 14 starts, 8 of them she's failed to score or assist in, which isn't bad, but it's not like she's spread them really consistently throughout those games. It's been kind of like 50-50 or 60-40 in favour of not scoring or assisting. But again, as we said, I feel like there's a bigger systemic problem at LCL for being the reason for that rather than her.
Yeah.
That gives us a score of 25, I think. 25.
I feel like I've scored really high.
I think you can make some... I don't think anyone's arguments have been fair or unfair. It's always going to happen when you've got 2 people rating them as well.
That's true. So for my final player then, I'm going to talk about Vita Olsen.
Okay. I say that like it's a surprise. It's not a surprise. But...
So I think obviously Liverpool have been a very strange case this season. Started out looking absolutely like they were dead set to be bottom. Looked completely out of sorts. Looked like the Gareth Taylor gamble had not paid off in any way. It was like, well, bought him in too late. Didn't get a chance to bring in the players he wanted. Had, to be fair, horrific injuries. It just looked bad times. But I think even during the bad times, Vita Olsen was, I think, keeping the head above water. I think it was before Christmas, didn't she score like 4 in 4 or something ridiculous like that?
She had a nice run, didn't she?
She was still consistently scoring goals, even though they were shit.
Yep.
I think when I was looking at her numbers, I think what I found quite interesting is I don't have much to back this up other than just a feeling, but I feel like players, the WSL, and it was a big thing in January because of the way that the season's run. But I think players come into the WSL from like the Damallsvenskan, for example, and they've like been goal machines in that league, and then they've come into the WSL and it's like, oh.
Yep.
The example that I've got as a Leicester fan is Eric Stottier, who was, again, a goal machine, came to Leicester and hasn't scored a goal for Leicester.
Yes.
And is now on loan at Fiorentina, where I don't think she scored a goal either.
I don't believe so. Scored at the Euros.
She did score at the Euros. So maybe I'm being unfair there, but I feel like Vita Olsen has come into the WSL and lived up to the hype.
Yeah, hit the ground running.
So have Spurs' various Scandi
Martin Ho imports,
to be fair. But I think for her, she came into Liverpool in the summer, which was actually halfway through the Swedish season. So she was already on a bit of a tear anyway. She was on 10 goals. And she's basically come into the WSL and had 8 goal involvements in less minutes. So it looks like she's just continued that form, which when she's already played 1,319 minutes for Kristianstad in the same year, and then come into this season is pretty ridiculous, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of all the players that I've looked at, and I think actually the players that we've spoken about, I think she's probably, the phrase one-dimensional sounds harsh, but I think she's just really good at one thing, or one position.
I'd agree with that.
And there's nothing wrong with that. She's a number 9. She's a classic number 9.
Yep.
But I feel like the way that it's Gareth Taylor, it's a very specific, structured system, and she works in that system.
Yeah.
And it's like Kirsty Hansen in a way. It's like this system is perfect for her.
Yeah.
And
it's a little bit like Bunny Shaw as well.
Well, yeah. And the numbers show you that they are. I think, shout out to Kerry Holland, obviously. I just don't think Liverpool work without Holland. Yeah. They didn't have her for the FA Cup game against Charlton the other day, and I don't think it's any coincidence they struggled to score in normal time.
Yeah.
I think they do, those two link up really well. They seem to have a good understanding. Holland picks up the ball, powers down the pitch. Olsen just needs to get herself in the box, and invariably she is.
Yeah.
I think her just having that one job, it works.
Yeah.
And yeah, her shot on target percentage and her goals per shot were the best of the 3 that I looked at.
Right.
She's just very, very clinical.
Yeah.
Her and 2 other players have the joint best conversion rate for players that have played more than 750 minutes in the WSL this season. Would you like to guess who the other 2 players are? Does that make sense?
It does. Are the other 2 players who've scored like 1 goal from one shot? Is one of them Emily Van Egmond?
No.
I mean, I was going to say Bunny, but I actually think she's probably taking way too many shots. Numbers,
yeah.
To be true, Blackstenius, sorry.
Again,
Too many
shots off
no,
target.
Go on, tell me.
Ashi and Kumagai.
Oh, right.
Her shot on target percentage is 53.3%.
Right, yeah, very.
And but we're talking about Hansen and Hansen's numbers. Hansen's taking nearly, more than double shots per 90.
Okay.
That Olsen's taking.
Very conservative, but she's
conservative.
When she's shooting, she's
classic number 9, and she's just deadly clinical. Like one shot.
Yeah.
Got a couple of assists as well, so maybe I'm being a bit harsh and saying she's one-dimensional, but I can't remember exactly.
Still get assists from number 9.
Yeah, no, I know, but I feel like without looking specifically at the situations I was in, I feel like she was probably in the box and tapped in.
She's not dancing through tackles and playing a beautiful football kind of thing. I know what you mean.
And I think she's, based on her performances, she's had her first senior call up to Sweden. She hasn't got on the pitch for them yet because that pathway to that position for Sweden is blocked by a player that we've spoken about quite a lot.
Sweden captain.
Seen Blackstenius. But I think she's just a good, solid, classic number 9. And I think that, I don't think her numbers, if we look at her, she had that ridiculous one where it was 4 in 4, 5 in, whatever it was. It's just, she scored in every game. It felt like, I feel like she's not like a Martinez where I can see someone poaching her. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not eye-catching enough.
It feels like she's solid and dependable, but not flashy.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Is that hard?
I think a player I might compare her to is someone like a Turland, who I know is now playing in the 10.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison.
I think,
that's fucking stupid.
Yeah, I think you look at that season Turland had for Brighton, I don't think Olsen is quite at that level where it's like, okay, she is clearly, again, that season Turland had was similar to sort of Godfrey numbers, I imagine, in terms of the goal and assist contribution to the total. It was like Turland is dragging this team forward, and I think that, I don't think Olsen's quite at that level yet, but like you say, still young, still plenty of time for that kind of evolution to occur. So I think that's a good one. Give us your scores.
Yeah, so my scores on the doors are output 7, maybe a bit harsh, but
no, I think that's fair. I think that's about right.
Like I say, for someone who is playing as a number 9, like a dedicated number 9, it's not 6 goals is not setting the world alight, is it?
No.
Versatility, I've given her a 3.
Yep.
Again, maybe a bit harsh, but I feel like she has one job and she's good at it, and that's fine.
Yep.
Clutchness, I've given her a 9 just because I feel like genuinely, I just don't know where Liverpool would be.
Yeah.
At the moment, she's their top scorer. So we're not talking about massive numbers here, but in a
team that's not prolific.
She's rescued an away point at West Ham. Her goal got them a point against Chelsea. I feel like given Liverpool's season context, she's been really, really, really important for them.
That West Ham game, for example, it's only a point, but, it's crucially, it's denying West Ham 2 points.
And I feel like she's one of those players where, for Liverpool specifically, and I think generally, but if you think about just having her on the pitch, it's like a player that I would have hoped we would have been talking about today if a sliding doors moment had gone differently and she'd managed to stay fit. Naomi Mouchon for Leicester. Or Blackstenius, to directly compare her to a contemporary. It's not so much just that, yes, they are capable of scoring goals. It's that having their presence on the pitch in terms of stretching the game and stretching the defence.
Forces the defence back.
It's like a threat. It's like having her on the pitch is a threat.
Yeah, and I think
at all times you're always having to worry about where she is.
Yes.
Because you know what she can do. Because, as I've said, 53% shot on target.
If she gets a sniff, she will probably take the chance. I think, again, not wanting to talk anyone else down, but I think if you look at, obviously, after the Roman Haug injury, the fact that Liverpool, before Olsen really got up to speed, were basically relying on Enderby in the 9. And, she's having a good season, but she's not a number 9. And I think that was a big problem where teams were like, yeah, you can stick her up front, but
we're not particularly worried about her.
We're not really worried. Whereas, like you say, when you got Olsen there, who is this kind of ice cold, finisher, it's like, okay, we need to just keep an eye on her because all she needs is one sniff and she can probably finish. So, spot on.
I've given her an 8 for consistency because looking back over her career and she's had a decent output. And then, like I say, I feel like just for the fact that she was on 10 goals for Kristianstad, and then she's literally played like pretty much half a season and then come into the WSL and then just carried on where she left off. And she's added like there's a bit of a black spot in her data because I think the team, so IK Uppsala, they must have got relegated, so there was missing stats for the Swedish second tier. So, but I can't see the data that I have got. She hadn't had any assists, whereas she's added that to her game. So yeah, I'll give her an 8 for consistency, which gives her a total score of 27.
Very good.
So, final scores on the doors are Kirsty Hansen, 29, Shakira Martinez, 24, Kiko Seike, 29, Freya Godfrey, 25, Olivia Holt, 27, and Beata Olsen, 27.
That sounds pretty fair to me.
On the numbers, we're talking Hansen versus Seike. I think I was ready to argue, if you had spoken about Beth England, that I think Beth England is the most important in the WSL.
I think the mark against England this season is that she's played a lot of time in the 10, which I know is my argument that we can overlook that. But I
feel like maybe I was just I was like being a bit of a hipster. I was like, you've got all you flashy young forwards, you Swedish imports, but
she's, I do
proper WSL veteran.
And I think the one thing that probably counts against her is it's a little bit like the Rachel Daly conversation.
Too versatile for her own good.
So good, so versatile. You know, you could stick her in midfield alongside Suman and say mix it for this game, and she could.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you could stick her at left back and she'd do a stint there as well. Like, you know, I think it's a classic kind of versatility thing. It's both a blessing and a curse, and I think that's the only thing that possibly counts against her. And I feel for her, because I think if you stuck her in this team with Holt and Hamano and whoever else, a Gaupset behind her or Naz on the wing or whatever, and she'd be plundering goals, she'd probably be up there alongside your Hansons. I mean, you know, famously she is not far off Hansen in terms of the goal scoring charts, despite the fact she spent a lot of the season in the 10.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair argument. Spurs are very blessed in that department in terms of the number of attackers they've got. So, it's hard to separate them.
It being either Hansen or Seike feels right, but I can't. It's like my heart is telling me Hansen and my head's telling me Seike.
Well, it actually kind of brings us back quite nicely to what we discussed at the top.
Have we come full circle?
Where I think if you're a fan of the versatile, can do a bit of everything, Swiss Army knife forward,
but it's not particularly clutch, but it's just consistently dependable.
I think Seike is your
but
player. If you want
fireworks,
clutch, but also you have to kind of build the system around her to her strengths, then I think
Kirsty Hansen's your gal.
Yeah.
Should we give it to him joint?
I think so.
Kirsty Hansen and Kiko Seike, joint best forwards in the other 8 of the WSL.
Yes.
2026. Well, is she?
Yeah.
End of.
Well done, guys.
Jesus, that was an absolute marathon.
Well, I mean, we've been storing it up. It's been like 3 weeks since we recorded, so.
Well, yeah, and there was a lot to go for. I had spreadsheets, there was all sorts of scores, there was matrices. I hope that's been insightful. If you have any opinions, I mean, my system is airtight and ironclad, so you can't really argue with it. But you can try if you want. No, we'd love to hear your opinions about who you think is the best forward in the other 8. Yeah. I've sort of tailed off now.
I think we've both completely run out of steam now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for listening. I will do my usual spiel before I let you go after this absolute mammoth episode. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please do give us a rating. It's very helpful. And if you're not doing so already, give us a follow so you don't miss an episode. We are sort of ad hoc in it at the moment. We're not necessarily on a schedule, so make sure you don't miss an episode. Thank you very much for listening and sticking with us to the end if you are still here. We'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.